Right. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are, to day 4 of our ERP Bootcamp review session. And today we are looking at the definition phase. And we'll be starting off by looking at some of the business processes. I'll talk a little bit about business processes, and the focus here is on the functional specification, which is on what the software does. And the aim here is to try to get to what is called a target operating model. So let's get started. So first we look at the functional overview. There are some functional specification documents that we'll have a quick look at. And then we'll go on to look at the core process flows. And then we'll finish off with the functional specification. So let me start with the core flows within the financial space. And I've got a number of slides to share, and some of these slides you'll be able to also download them as well. So with the core flows, we'll looking at the high-end, what we call the level 1 and level 2 business flows. Now, the levels are mainly looking at them from a high level process. And after that, we then go on and look at some of the business case for the finance and the business. Now, when you're implementing, your customer is the business. If you're an external consultant, and even if you're internal, the business is really your customer, and you're implementing a software that will be used by the business at some point in the future. So there has to be a business case as to why they're doing what they're doing, why they're implementing, and also what benefits is it going to bring to the operations of the business. And then we'll go into some of the detailed level 1 and level 2 Oracle flows. There are some mapping to the standard Oracle modern best practice to the fusion process levels. So again, I'll take you through that. That takes you up to what is called a level 3. And there are some details on this in the videos, the core videos that you'll have access to in the main course. And then we'll look at some of the decision points, and then we'll also look at the business impact. So here you are in the phase where you're looking at the definition. What does the software do? What are the processes that the business need to look at? What is the impact? And there's a lot of discussions usually during these workshops in terms of what we are trying to do and what the business needs to do to make this happen. So in our 7Ds or our main methodologies, we are in the define phase. Focus is on business processes. So I'll start off by looking at the payables process definition. So I'll start off by looking at some of the core things that we've mentioned. So we've looked at this core flow yesterday. And when we now look at where this payables process fits in within the scale of what is called the modern business best practice. These are recommended best practice by Oracle, and supplier invoice to payment is one of the core flows that you have within the solution set. So Oracle calls it the modern best practice, and the flow is supply invoice to payment, and it is within a solution set called payables management. So I'm going to take you through this solution set just for you to see where this fits in, and when you go into the business, how you start to drill down in a bit more detail. So there are a number of functional areas. You've got financials, procurement, projects, supply chain, and EPM. And underneath this, you have all the different modules or solution sets. Now, so within each of the functional areas, you have a number of modules. Now, there are some modules that are used between two functional areas. So for example, you have cash management, which could even flow into some of these other ones like, well, it could be part of, well, financial control and reporting could flow in with your EPM. So when we now start to look at flows, I'm talking about when you call a flow like procure to pay, account to report, and so on. So you could also have some of these functional areas crossing over into some of those core flows, end-to-end. I mean, they're actually called the end-to-end business flows. So when you go on a project or when you see an advert for a role that says that we're looking for an O2C consultant, so they're basically saying that they're looking for an order to cash consultant. And it would mean that some of the activities could be part of supply chain, some of the activities could be part of finance. And P2P, for example, is another good example of that, where you have areas flowing in from procurement to payables, source to pay, as an example. Well, and then within each of these, you could also have mini module areas and mini flows within this. So again, the key thing for you to remember is that wherever your modules falls, or whether your expert area falls, it could be within one of these core business flows. It could be within a particular functional area. It could also be within a solution set. Now, the supply invoice to payment mapping, as I mentioned, it fits in within this area, supply invoice to payment, and is actually part of payables. So part of payables management is where you would have this within the solution set. And if you look at the core flows, is actually part of your source to pay. So you can see that the module itself, the flow of what we're looking at, maps into two main areas. So I'm going to go through the supply invoice to payment, and we're going to look at some of the core areas. I'm not going to go into details on this. I mean, the video has a lot more details, and I just want us to cover the core of what we need to do to look at, to understand what is in these modern best practice business processes. Now, so on the left-hand side, you've got all the different areas. There are some notes of the value proposition, which tells you a little bit about why Oracle are offering this as a solution set or as a modern best practice business processes. So what you have are predefined business processes, which has a number of functions. So for example, manage supply invoices, which allows you to process invoice electronically by scanning, and you have rules to drive the routing of the automation of the processing of these invoices. And then you have auditing, which is the resolution of disputes and so on, holds. Then you have repayments and discounts, which is more of the management of the payment, of the invoice process. And then you have the liabilities. How do you settle your invoices, which is payments? And then you go swiftly on to the reporting aspects. And these are the core areas. And then at the end of the period, you kind of close the period, close payables. And then this can then flow into another area. Now, you could have, in some cases, there could be some input, and this is the process, and then you have the output. Each of the different stages will also have this input, process, and maybe an output, and so on. So again, going back to the breaking down of processes between those three core areas, is easy for you to break things down and find out why you're doing something, where, how, when, I call it the 5 W's and an H. and how is done within the system. So that gives you an idea of the payables. So in terms of the business case, so this is where we ask the question to the business: why are you doing this? And in most cases, most companies want to streamline their processes. They want they want a benefit of a modern ERP system. And within the finance function, it could be that they want faster, accurate invoice processing. And how does Oracle do this? Oracle has got an integrated imaging solution, which is the IDR, which allows you to do this. Easy and accurate invoice entry. Again, if invoices are scanned, if they're coming in from an external system, then the risk of errors are reduced. And also the payments, they want payments to be streamlined. So all these are examples of what the business will come to you and say that this is the finance function, and these are the reasons why we want this to be done. So for example, payables management could be, we want on-time payments. We want payments to be on time. We want something that is robust. We want something that is end-to-end. We want something that will make things easy for us to do. And also faster completion of our month end. So you're driving at pain points and looking at how you can reduce that pain point. There's no need to put in complicated processes if you don't need it. There are controls within the system that will help you to manage those processes a lot faster and better. Now, if we go into the level 1 fusion process model, you got procurement, and it's 00.11.00.00. So you've got all these numbers, but I'll come back to those numbers in a minute. So this is the level 1. Now, when you drill down within procurement, it then takes it into another level. So within procurement, you have your invoices, payments, and accounts payable within that. So each of these mini processes or functions also have activities that you perform within each of them. Now, we've not got to the point of looking at who does what within each of these areas. We're just breaking down those processes from the core functions into smaller process areas. Now, what one needs to then do is think about the how are you going to map this to the next level down. Now, what I'm going to do is I didn't plan to do this before, but what I want to do is take you into the one of the areas. If you just bear with me a moment, just want to show you some documents that you'll have access to. And I think we're going to go through this tomorrow. Let's go into the main course. So in the assignment, okay, yeah, these are the slides for today. These are the functional specs. But before we go there, I just want to show you something on the processes. Right, these are the level 2, level 3 processes. So when you go on site, you will have to work with some of these processes. I'll give you access to all of this. So this is kind of like the levels I was talking about. So if I go to procurement, under procurement, you have a lot of different processes. So level 1, level 2, manage requisitions, level 2, manage payments, for example. So if I select manage payments, let's say manage invoices, so it brings you into this level. So this level is the process level that we're talking about. So within each of these, you have functions that happen within each of these. So you submit invoices, receive process invoices, audit, approve, and so on. So when you're going through these workshops, now this should be the standard processes that the business will use. But it's possible that they will tell you that before we process an invoice as an example. I'm just using this as an example. Before we process this invoice, we need to do some checks. We need to check whether the supplier is VAT registered, for example, as an example. And it may require that this process will interface with an external system to be able to complete what it needs to do. So when we get to payments, for example, payments may need to go to the bank. So with payments, you record payments, you process payment files, you record the accounting for payments. But part of this processing your payment files, there's an interface there that goes to the bank to send the payment out. So now when you're going through these process flows with the business, you start to identify each of these points which could be integration points. So that's the point I actually wanted to make out, that when you're going through each of these, there are flows within this that goes into further details that gives you the details of what needs to happen within those areas. Now, this is a level 2 flow. This then takes you into the level 3, which is the next level down. So if I go into the level 3, and then you have the specific activities within each of the different process areas. So you've got level 1, supply invoice to payment. Level 2 takes you to the next level down. And then level 3 takes you into the activity of what you would perform within each of the different process areas. Now, all this is also mapped. So what you've got here are in those list of Visio. I'm going to give you all the Visio diagrams for this later. I mean, we'll be looking at that tomorrow. But today we're focusing mainly on how does the system do this within the application. Now, these are generic flows. Regardless of the ERP that you're implementing, you will still need to go through this process flows. But what we're saying is that these are the generic flows. These are the ones that we will say this is out of the box, and this is what you're getting as a solution. Now, you can then go into the level which I've just showed you now, which is the level 2, taking you into what happens within each of these. And then each of these, you then start to identify key decision points when you're going through this. Now, so for further discussion, you could say that foreign currency conversion, you could start asking questions about the receipting, PO matching, prepayment applications, tax, withholding tax, invoice validation, invoice approval. So there's a lot of different areas where you can start to talk about with the business within those process definition areas. And then this is where you now start to confirm a lot of things on what the business do. So I've exploded the decision points out a bit so that you start to think about this when you're going through this. One is the integration of existing AP transactions with Fusion. Purchasing policy, you can start to ask them that, do you have a no PO, no pay? Invoice matching rules, inspection criteria, matching the tolerances is another one that you need to start to pick out at this stage. Hold policy, routing of invoices, exception handling and query, so workflow approvals and the accounting model. I'm going to go into the details of the accounting model later, but the key bit here is that you're looking at each of these areas. You're thinking about what's the key decision points. So this is, again, managing supply invoices. So what I've done is I have decision points and the business impacts for each of those areas, which are areas that you need to speak to the business about when you're having this workshop. So for example, the business impact, when you start to think about supply invoices, what about the communication of your purchasing policy to your internal stakeholders? What about the communication of this to the suppliers? You put in a new system, suppliers need to be communicated. They need to be told about, how your processes are going to change and what that means for them. If there's going to be any changes to the purchasing policies, then they need to be aware of those as early as possible. And then if you're implementing a module like supplier portal, then suppliers need to be onboarded. They need to go through the training. They need to be able to maybe change some of their processes to be able to accommodate the new application that you're implementing. And then you have the collection of any additional supplier data. It could be the bank details, it could be tax IDs, and it could be other data that you need to collect from the supplier at this point. And then if you're operating what is called a global process, you may need to start to think about your supplier master data, because supplier is set up at the enterprise level, and then is then assigned based upon the procurement, based upon the purchasing business unit, or payment business unit function, and then you then assign it to using your supplier site assignment to the BU that needs to transact. So you're thinking about the structure of suppliers. You're thinking about, at this point, what are the core data that you need to collect from the business at this point. So very, very early on, start to talk about these things that would impact them. Terms, on the PO, for example, formats of this, and start to think very, very early about the supplier data cleanup, and then start to get some sample data so that you have something that you can work with. So this, I've got this for each of the different areas. So for example, for payments, similar kind of thing, the payment decision points, very, very detailed. And I've been on projects before where I've just taken this as my starting point for my discussion on when I go into client side for starting off the definition phase. So, and then the business impact, the business will appreciate that you have an interest in how this is going to impact what they're going to do, and what this means for them. I mean, for payments, for example, it could be you need to start to build up the relationship with their bank, because you need to test the payment files. And have they got a sandbox where they can do the testing? Are there any protocols that need to be set up before data can go from one system to another system? Are there going to be any encryption? There's a lot of different questions that you can start to ask at this stage. What are the controls they have? What are these? So you're dealing with an external supplier to the project, and that can impact the project if things are not done very, very early on. So you have this, you have the core flows. This is for payable balances, similar kind of thing, the key decision points, the business impacts, and then, and also evaluating the key decision areas and also potential high-level impact. So it's a lot of information for you to go through. Get yourself familiar with this. There are some documentation I'm going to show you that will also help you in this journey. I've got a similar one for cash management. Again, we've gone through the process for cash management, similar kind of flow for cash management. Again, using the modern best practice to break down each of the process areas, and then going into some of the other areas as well, the business case, and also the levels where it fits in within the global process areas, and also specific areas: manage cash, manage banking, analyze cash management, and then the flows and how that maps, and also the core level 2 flows, and also decision points and the business impacts for each of these as well. So you have all of this. You have for each of the different areas, again, decision points, receivables management, same thing for receivables. And then you've got all this as well, flows, what happens. So a lot of information for you to go through. Business case, I would say get yourself familiar with the structure, get yourself familiar with each of the business case, streamlining daily activities, highlight transaction directory. So these are examples. It's not limited to this. This could be expanded a lot more to look at specifics within each of the different businesses. Where it fits in within the process model is under order fulfillment, and then drills into different areas. I'll be looking at process maps and the mapping, and also the level 2 flows. Again, looking at decision points for each of the receivable areas, business impacts, the process flows. Again, I've used exactly the same method for each of the for each of the areas. So you have decision points, key business impacts, and so on. So we've got this for all the different areas. Got it for general ledger as well. General ledger is mainly to do with reporting and closing. So your daily close, your financial forecast, where that fits in. Now, some businesses use a tool called EPM, which is, you find out that some of them use EPM for planning, for budgeting, for financial close as well, consolidation. So it's possible that you're on a project and GL just pushes the data into another system or is pulled from another system for further analysis. So you have this, you have your what happens on a daily basis. Structure is exactly the same. And also you have the financial control and reporting. You have the enterprise structure, control, capturing transactions, closing the accounting period, what needs to happen when the accounting periods close, and also the core level 2 flows. So those are the core areas. There's quite a bit to look at there, and also for your functional specs. So what I want to do now, I want to go into functional specifications just to look at this in a bit of detail. And I really want to spend some time on this, and that's why I've kind of run through a lot of the process areas so that you will have some time to look at what happens when you get the functional specs. Now, the functional specs will describe the core functionality of the modules to be implemented, which is based on the scope. And what you will have embedded inside of the functional specs are usually, actually, I'm not sure if it's in this functional spec, it's in the other document. Yes, I think, yeah. So you'd have screenshots, you have step-by-step guide, you will have some core process flow, not the one, not the who does what. That's in another document. That's in the design document. But here you're looking at what does the application do. So you're really looking at a functional overview, and this is where you look at the day in the life of maybe a generic accounts payable person. So when you conduct this workshop, I mean, I believe that this is one of the most useful workshops that you need to conduct. So what you're basically doing here is that you're confirming the functionality of the core modules, and at this point, you're also starting off by the training session and getting the business involved in the application. Now, in the past, what I've done is that I've used it as an advantage also to collect information and also validate my setup. So remember that you would have got the questionnaire, and you're now going to ask the business some questions based upon what you've set up. So if you remember at the questionnaire point, I said you can use the vision environment, right? Now, at the functional specs or the definition phase, this is before you go into design, you've actually got the first cut of the system. Now, by this time next week, you should be able to do that on the application. So you've got the functional requirements really from your questionnaire. Now you're validating your functional specs. So let me take you through what the document looks like, and then I want you to start to think about how you can very quickly use this to your advantage, especially when you're learning this product and also when you are on site and you want to start to engage the business with the application. I would usually not only show them this document, but also demo how it's done on the system using data that looks like their data, and for them to start to warm up to the application. So the document will have screenshots, will have details of how certain things are done, and then we'll maybe have some tables, and then you're taking them through the functionality that you've described in your flows. So that's basically what that workshop will be. So you're taking them through the functionality of how certain things are done within the flow as well. Now, let me show you the document. See, now I'm going to go to day 4. And we're going to go into assignment. Now, this is there's a folder here where all the documents are held. So if you want to, you can come here and you can get access to all of that. But then what I've done is I've also embedded them directly. So you may just click on this and then it will give you the document. Now, in this document, where is it gone? Okay, interesting. Why is it blank? Okay, let's try it again. Oh, so yeah. So I think he was still trying to load the document. Yeah. So function specification GL. Let's look at payables and payments as an example. So purpose of the document, or disclaimer there, that's the usual. And then 98 pages of these functional specs. Now, what you have here is a generic training document, really. So it's a solution brief that describes the main functionalities of Fusion Payables, and it will walk you through the most important features, and then takes you into the functionality. So it gives you a brief description, key concepts, and then it then guides you into what the business unit is. So remember that the business are going to be reading this. You know, the business are going to be reading this document, right? So as they read in this document, they're getting educated on how Oracle works. You're also, at the same time, it's a two-way thing. You're educating them and you're getting information from them and you're demoing it on the system. Now, you're taking them through what a business unit is, and you're taking them through different types of business units, requisitioning, sold to business unit service provider. These are the business units. So this is part of the setup, taking them through what centralized procurement is. And then you then go into details, reference data sharing. We're gonna go through this when we start to do setups anyway. So by the time you get to the client side, you would have really known a lot about this document. Then you then go into the business flows, right? So within each of these different business flows, this is the same business flows that you would have in the slides, the same business flows that you would have access to later in Visio. And you're able to go through and use a scenario. So this could be their company. Instead of saying Infusion, it will be a company, and just tell them that you've just taken this from the information they've given you in the questionnaire. So here you specify the countries, the legal entities, the ledgers, the structure. So this could be their own diagram as a structure. And then you go into some details, supplier. So this is setting up supplier. And then at this point, you could say that, oh, when you set up your supplier, do you need, is it mandatory to obtain maybe the tax registration number? Is it mandatory, or do you collect the DUNS number for your supplier? So at this point, you're also asking them additional information, which may not be in your questionnaire. And remember that supplier, for example, is one of the objects that you would need when you do your data migration. So now you haven't started to build, you're still in the definition phase, and you're now getting data that you would need for your data migration, or you're getting the business to start to think about that data. You go in, you create a supplier, you create supplier, and then you mention about your organization, business classification. These are all the different tabs. As you're going through these tabs, you're asking them questions about, do they need this information? Now, some of you may be saying, okay, but how do I know the details of this? Now, let me just show you something that will really help you. So Oracle has very kindly, over the years, made life a lot easy for a lot of consultants. And they've provided all this documentation in docs.oracle.com. So if you go to docs.oracle.com, you have access to a lot of documentation. Some of the stuff I'm showing you will be on this site as well. Now, the reason why I'm showing this to you is that you can start to build your own repository of this documentation. You can start with this, but you can start to build your own. Now, this is from an earlier version. I haven't changed this in the last at least 4 years, but I still use this as my starting point when I go on site, because the screens are pretty much still the same. There's nothing has changed so much in the screens. So, but it'd be good if they actually see an example of their own supplier details in here, as an example. If you can ask them, can you name one of your suppliers? And you can go on the web, look at their website, you get their address, put it there as an example if you don't have those information. So in docs.oracle.com, if I go to financials, you can see that, and I go to all books, I can see all the user manuals. So here, if I look for using payables, invoice to pay, HTML, it gives me all the information. So let me go to And in some cases, Oracle even have videos embedded. So this is all the information. But what you have here is a lot of information. It's a lot. Now, you can also download the PDF. So there's a PDF version which you can download. Now, if you download the PDF, you have this document. Now, I believe this document is quite a lot of pages. You're not going to give your client a whole PDF of using invoice to pay, which is, I would tell you, 536 pages. You're not going to do that. So just to show you, this is the document. So you're not going to give them all this. But what I've done is I've kind of taken only the bits that you need. So pay invoices, invoice line types, again, going through line types. Some of these workshops can take a while to go through. I'm not talking about, it could be 3 or 4 days going through payables only, if you want to go through it in depth with the business. So that's an example. So you have all of that information. I remember many years ago when one of the students who came on this course was taking the exam, and the fellow said to me that I just looked through the materials in this functional specs. I looked through the videos. I looked through some of the exam prep questions in the dessert part of the course, took the exams, and I passed. I thought, wow, I wasn't even thinking about it, that you could just sit down and read this rather than going in to read 500 pages. You've got 98 pages, which is condensed into what you really need. But that's an example of how you can use this document, you know. So you've got this for each of the different areas. Now, so you've got this. You've also got the slides for today in PDF. So these are the slides of what we went through. So again, you've got all of this for you to have a look at. Now, let's go back. Cash management, financial, oops. Sure what happened there, but GL, very similar for GL as well. GL, a bit more, about 180 pages. Just a moment. Right, so quite a lot of pages. Again, takes you through the details of general ledger. A lot of stuff to read, to go through. But this takes you through the core functionality. Okay. So we are at that point where I feel that we can start to ask questions. Let me check to see if there are any questions in the chat. Anything else that I wanted to cover? I'm not sure there is anything else, but that's the core of today. Functional specs. And then tomorrow we'll start off with design, looking at the design document. Right, so a few questions here. What does EPM stand for? Yes, somebody has actually answered. Thank you very much. Enterprise Performance Management. Would you be sharing the OneDrive where the docs are? Yes. OneDrive where the docs are. So if you go to functional specs, this is your day 4. Select functional specs. This is the OneDrive. So you have this already. So that's that. I think you can download it from here as well. Okay, so there's some questions which has been sent directly to me, which I will, okay, someone is mentioning that are these docs available in docs format? Unfortunately not. I've put them in as PDF at the moment. I've tried the Casey Brown, not going through yet. So someone is trying to log in to the environment and they're not getting through. So let me see if I can help on that front. Let's go to okay. Actually, I think I am logged into Fusion. So Casey Brown. Yeah, so it's locked. So that means that the password was entered many times and it's locked the user. So let's unlock and reset the password. I just need to make sure that it's the correct environment. So what environment are you? Is Dev 90, isn't it? It is Dev 90. Let me just check. But that's the environment that you guys have. Day 2, right? This was the, yeah, it's Dev 90. So this password saying that it's not working. Okay, let's try and change it back to that password. So that should work now. Yeah. So if I log in as Casey.Brown, there we go. So it's in. Yeah. Right. Question here is, do you mean the person went through the functional specs instead of the docs and docs to prepare? Yes. Yes, that's basically what happened. So the person went through the functional specs. I'm not saying that's what you should do, but I'm just using that as an example to say that you can very quickly go through the functionality just by looking at the functional specs. Yeah. Okay. You can unmute, raise up your hands and ask questions.
Hello, Yomi. This is Yomi.
Hi.
Hi. I'm planning on creating my chart of account on Saturday, I need to find out what version of the rapid implementation spreadsheet I should download.
Right. Okay. I would say hold fire on that for now because the environment's going to change on at the weekend. So I'm going to give you another environment on Monday for this course for the next 3 weeks. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So what we normally do is that the first week you will use this environment or maybe the one that I give you. Then the second week of the course, I'll give you another environment that you use for 3 weeks.
Okay.
There is a reason for that. Oracle only provide the environment for 3 weeks. Yeah. So if I give you access to an environment today, it means that it will
refresh.
It will refresh before the end of the course. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. I'll do that.
Okay. Thanks. Bella.
Hi. So,
Hi.
Yeah, when you're taking the users through the functionalities of the system, it's are you using the documents? You know, I saw this. You showed us the screenshots.
Yeah.
In the document, or actually, it's you take them through Vision and then show them the demonstrate these functionalities on the applications on Vision, or is it like you're showing snapshots in the?
It's a combination. Now, yeah, some companies, it's not mandatory, but some companies would say that they needed functional specs as one of their sign-off documents. Now, it really depends on the implementation that you're on. I would say that in most cases, it's better. I mean, for me personally, some people will just show the document, but I would give them the document as a deliverable, but not. Well, let me go back a few steps. Now, you have the solution scope, right? So what you're doing in this document, you're saying that this is the standard functionality, and you're taking the business through it on the system. Now, some businesses would say that we need a functional specs. It's like you go and you buy you buy a laptop. Well, they don't do that anymore, but if you buy a piece of machinery, they will give you a user manual, right? So this is the functional specs is like saying this is what the system can do.
Okay.
Yeah, but at that point, there can be changes to it. So it's always a live document. The reason why I prepare that document is that it saves me a lot of time in the future. When I start to prepare my test scripts, my training documentation. Now, if there are going to be any changes, for example, if there's going to be interfaces, so I will put in that document, C document ABC, which is the functional specs for XYZ interface. So there's a link from that document to another document that kind of gives the users what they need to do. Now, the functional specs will later become an SOP, right? Standard operating procedures or user manual. So that's basically the trend that I've seen. And if you have it, if you're starting with that document, it can grow to a big document. It can grow into smaller chunks, but it's always a good place to start.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah. So that starting point is what I've provided so that you can then build on that. And yeah. Okay. Question, is the environment going to be available over this weekend? Let me check Dev90. Let me just check Dev90. Just a moment, I will let you know. Dev90 should be available up until the 14th of this month, which is, yeah, so it'll be available this weekend, yeah, up to until next week, Tuesday. So you should be okay till at least next week, Tuesday on this environment. Okay. Any other questions?
Oh yeah,
Oh, okay, go on.
Yeah, I asked a question about the legal entities and all that kind of thing yesterday. And
Sure.
what I did was I had a look at, the functional specs that you produced, the more compressed version of the Oracle. It was very helpful.
Yeah.
It was
Okay.
really good. Yeah. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, question here, whether BU process drives the Oracle Fusion process, even if BU process is not best practice, how does the BA convince the client when the client says that we've been doing it? Right. That is a classic question. We've been doing it for years. Yeah. And I think I had a caption that I normally show when somebody asks this type of question. Yes, they would ask, they would say, oh yeah, we've been doing it for years, we don't want to change, but this is a new system and change is imminent. So for me now, and the other thing is that as a consultant, you're going there, you've got your best practice hat on, you're coming in with new ideas that will help them to do their business in a better way. And if they say we've been doing it for years, then if it's not working as best as it should, then you just explain to them that, well, the classic one is that it's spreadsheets. Yes, I would usually say that this is the best practice. This is what you've purchased. You're spending millions on this system, and change is imminent. So if they can't give me a good reason, if it's not regulatory, if it's not compliance and tax, there's a few reasons why they would have to do something. If not, it's just a nice to have. And they can't just say that they want something because somebody has asked for a report many years ago, because without the reason of backing up why they still need it now. So this is an example of what you would normally get. I'm tired of inefficient processes. When is that new ERP system coming? And that person is still holding on onto their spreadsheets. And the consultant is saying, when you hand over those spreadsheets you've been creating for over 20 years, then that's basically, someone has put their SOX compliance, Sarbanes-Oxley. So if it's compliance, then definitely you need, Okay. So another question, how does Fusion incorporate the requirement of GDPR? So again, in some of the modules where GDPR is necessary, then yes, it does comply. Maybe we can go through specifics much later in the course, but there is compliance with GDPR. RMC Risk Management Cloud, yes, which is used again for a lot of the compliance, controls. Controls is another good one. Risk, so those are the reasons why you would really want to hold on to processes. Bella.
Please, can you tell us like some real life examples of complex requirements,
Complex requirements. Wow.
That probably leads to technical.
There are. Some of them may require a new, a PaaS, which is platform as a service. And then in the old EBS days, this is where you would do some customizations. So in some cases, those requirements cannot be met by the ERP cloud product, and then that has to be built. If they've got data coming in from another source, if they have integration, which needs maybe some processes before it gets into ERP cloud, then you could use that. Somebody's put financial accounting hub, where you've got external applications that cannot derive accounting or needs to be accounted for. So that comes into ERP Cloud via an interface mapping product called Financial Accounting Hub. So yeah, there are a number of complex scenarios, and basically that's why we're here, you know, to make life easy when they've got complex scenarios, or for us to give them a solution for it. I always believe that there's always a solution for every issue. Yeah, there's always a solution. Yeah, always a solution. So it's doable, you know. But when I go on a project, that's what I say is doable. So yeah. Okay. So that's we are on the hour, so we can stop here today. So the assignment for today is not that much compared to what you've been looking at over the past few. I'm not sure where my Safari has gone. Okay, there it is. So let's look at the quickly your assignment for today. Let's go back to your assignment for today is basically just going through these documents that we have here. Yeah, go through them. There's lots of pages to read, and it's just for you to get yourself familiar with the materials. Okay, so thank you all, and see you all tomorrow, same time, same place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.